I was 41 years old when the administratum appointed me Planetary Governor of Varsavia Secundus. The appointment arrived via data courier on the 17th day of month 6, local calendar year 817, M41. I remember the temperature in my office that day, 23 degrees Celsius. The parchment seal carried the scent of incense and wax. I read the document 3 times before accepting that it was genuine. Varsavia Secundus, a mid-tier agri-world in the segmentum obscurus. Population 470 million. Primary export, grain shipments to support 3 nearby forge worlds and 1 hive world. Tithe grade, exactus medius, moderate but consistent. The previous governor had died of cardiac failure at age 79 after 32 years of service. His record was adequate. No commendations, no censures. He had maintained the tithe schedule without interruption. I accepted the appointment. My family had served the Imperium for 7 generations. My father had been a mid-level administrative official. My grandfather had commanded a regiment in the Astra Militarum. Service was expected. I had been educated at a minor schola, trained in governance protocol, logistics management, theological doctrine. I was qualified, not exceptional, but qualified. The journey to Varsavia Secundus took 93 days. I traveled aboard a cargo hauler, sharing quarters with 3 other minor officials being reassigned to worlds in the same subsector. We did not speak much. Each of us processed our appointments privately. I spent the journey reviewing files on Varsavia Secundus, production statistics, weather patterns, population distribution, infrastructure assessments. I memorized the data. Knowledge was authority. I arrived during the harvest season. The capital city, Varsavia Prime, sat in the center of a vast agricultural plain that stretched to the horizon in all directions. Fields of golden grain rippling in wind that carried the smell of dry earth and plant matter. The air tasted clean, no industrial pollutants, no hive city smog. The sky was blue. I had not seen a blue sky in 17 years. The planetary staff briefed me on my duties. The senior administrator, a man named Octavius, who had served under 3 previous governors, outlined the administrative structure: tax collection, infrastructure maintenance, Arbeitsliaison, PDF command protocols, ecclesiarchy coordination. Most importantly, the tithe schedule. The harvest yields have been consistent for 40 years, Octavius said. He was 62 years old, his face deeply lined from decades of administrative burden. We ship 214 million tons of grain annually. The tithe is assessed at 41 million tons. We exceed the requirement by 6% as buffer against transport losses. It is stored. 15% is stored in orbital silos as emergency reserve. The remainder is sold on local markets to maintain economic stability and fund planetary operations. The numbers were clean. The system was efficient. I saw no immediate problems. I governed for 2 years without incident. I attended ceremonial functions. I reviewed production reports. I signed requisition orders. I met with ecclesiarchy officials who spoke of the emperor's protection while they requisitioned funds for cathedral renovations. I met with PDF commanders who drilled soldiers for threats that never materialized. I met with agricultural administrators who managed crop rotations with precision. The work was routine. It was exactly what I had been trained to do. Year 3 brought the blight. The first reports came from the southern agricultural zones, a fungal infection affecting the grain crops. Initial estimates suggested 10% crop loss, containable. The agricultural teams deployed standard countermeasures, burning infected fields, treating surrounding areas with fungicide, implementing quarantine protocols. The blight spread. Within 4 months, 60% of the agricultural zones showed infection. The fungus was resilient. It adapted to the fungicides. It spread through spore dispersal that the wind carried across vast distances. The agricultural teams tried everything in their technical archives. Nothing stopped it. By month 8, the harvest projections had collapsed. Expected yield, 47 million tons. less than a quarter of normal production. We could not feed our population and meet the tithes simultaneously. I called an emergency council meeting. Octavius, the PDF commander, the ecclesiarchy representative, the senior agricultural administrator, 5 men sitting in a room discussing mathematics that led to starvation. "Can we request tithe deferment?" I asked Octavius. "The process requires application to the Administratum Subsector Office. Processing time is estimated at 18 to 36 months. We must continue meeting current obligations until deferment is approved. We cannot meet current obligations. The food does not exist. Then we must reduce civilian consumption and ship the tithe from existing reserves." The mathematics were simple. If we shipped the tithe using our reserves, we would have enough food to sustain the population at minimal rations for 7 months. After that, widespread starvation. Estimated deaths, 120 to 180 million. If we fed our population and failed to meet the tithe, the administratum would respond with punitive measures. Possible outcomes: replacement of planetary government, military intervention, planetary quarantine, or classification as rebel world with corresponding consequences. I had been trained to make decisions. This was the first decision that carried death regardless of choice. I chose to apply for tithe deferment and reduce civilian rations to minimal sustenance levels. We would meet the tithe for the current cycle using reserves while we waited for administratum processing. It was the only logical path. The rations were reduced. The population protested. Riots occurred in 3 cities. The PDF suppressed them with non-lethal force initially, then lethal force when non-lethal proved insufficient. 47 civilians died in the suppressions. I signed the orders. I authorized the force. I had no alternative. The months passed. The remaining grain reserves depleted. The starvation began. Not dramatically, not all at once. The death rate simply increased. The old died first, then the very young, then the sick, then anyone whose constitution was marginally weakened. The Medici facilities reported increasing admissions for malnutrition-related conditions. I read the reports. I processed the numbers. 12,000 deaths in month 1, 19,000 in month 2, 28,000 in month 3. I submitted status reports to the administratum as required. I detailed the crisis. I requested emergency food shipments. I requested expedited processing of the tithe deferment application. I received automated acknowledgement of my submissions. No other response. Month 6 brought the communication. It arrived through channels I did not recognize. Not administratum, not ecclesiarchy, not military. A data packet that bypassed standard communication protocols and appeared directly on my personal cogitator. The message was brief. "Governor Malthius, you face a crisis. I offer a solution. If you wish to discuss terms, be alone in your office at midnight local time. I will contact you." No identification. The data packet's origin was untraceable. I should have reported it immediately. Unknown contact through unauthorized channels violated 17 different security protocols. It could be heresy. It could be Xenos. It could be a test of my loyalty. But 107,000 of my people had died. The administratum had not responded. I was watching a world starve while I filled out requisition forms that vanished into bureaucratic void. I was alone in my office at midnight. The Vox unit activated without my input. The voice that emerged was male, refined, carrying an accent I did not recognize. He spoke Low Gothic with perfect fluency, but there was something wrong in the pronunciation, something that suggested it was not his native language. "Governor Malthius, I am called Archon Vraxon. I lead a cabal that operates in this region. I have observed your difficulties with interest." I knew the term, Dark Eldar, Xenos raiders, slavers, torturers, the enemy of mankind. Dealing with them was heresy. Speaking with them was heresy. "I have nothing to discuss with Xenos," I said. "Of course not. That would be inappropriate. However, I will speak briefly and you will listen, because you are a practical man. and practical men recognize when they have no alternatives. I did not disconnect. I should have. I did not. Your world requires food. You cannot provide it. The administratum will not provide it. I can provide it. 200,000 tons of preserved grain, sufficient to sustain your population until your local agriculture recovers. In exchange, I require a minor accommodation. What accommodation? Allow a small raid, 3 locations, minimal casualties, specific targets already identified. We extract what we require and depart. The operation will be logged as pirate activity, common enough in this sector. No one will investigate thoroughly. Your population lives. My business needs are met. Both parties benefit. The logic was clean. The logic was corruption. You want me to allow you to take slaves. I want you to allow me to take 340 individuals from a population of 470 million. Your world loses 0.00007% of its people. In exchange, 120 million do not starve to death. The mathematics favor acceptance. I disconnected the Vox. I sat in my office for 4 hours. I reviewed the numbers, projected deaths from continued starvation, estimated 120 to 180 million over the next 12 months. Projected deaths from allowing a Dark Eldar raid, 340 individuals. The mathematics favored acceptance, but accepting meant collaboration with Xenos. It meant heresy. It meant damnation. The ecclesiarchy taught that Xenos were anathema. Contact with them corrupted the soul. Dealing with them was betrayal of the Emperor's trust. I thought of the children dying in the Medicaid facilities. I thought of the mass graves being dug in the northern districts. I thought of the reports I read every morning, documenting how many died during the night. I reconnected the Vox at 0400. I require verification that you can provide what you claim, I said. Practical indeed. The Archon's voice carried amusement. Verification will arrive at your orbital docking station in 14 hours. Inspect it. Confirm quality. If satisfactory, we proceed. If not, we do not speak again. The grain arrived as promised, 200,000 tons of preserved wheat. Not contaminated, not poisoned. I had it tested extensively. It was food, real food, sufficient to sustain my population for 11 months. The Archon contacted me again at midnight. Satisfactory? He asked. Yes. Then we have terms to discuss. The raid will occur at locations I specify. You will ensure your PDF is conducting exercises in other regions during the operation. Response time will be delayed by mechanical failure of communication systems. When your forces arrive, we will have departed. You will file reports indicating pirate activity. You will not mention any unusual aspects of the attackers. This is simple. The grain will be delivered before the raid, half before, half after. I am not foolish enough to provide full payment in advance, Governor. You might develop a conscience once your people are fed. 340 people. 340. No more. I am precise in my requirements. I should have refused. I should have died with my people rather than make such a bargain. I should have trusted the Emperor's protection. I should have maintained faith that the administratum would respond, that solutions would emerge, that my duty was obedience regardless of cost. Agreed, I said. The first shipment of grain arrived 2 days later. 100,000 tons. I distributed it immediately to the population centers with highest mortality rates. The death rate began to decline. The Medicaid facilities reported fewer admissions. The mass graves stopped expanding. The raid occurred on schedule. 3 locations in the underdeveloped Eastern Territories. Small settlements. Low population density. The PDF response was delayed exactly as planned. Communication failures, equipment malfunctions, all carefully arranged. By the time PDF units arrived, the attackers had vanished. 340 people were missing. The settlements showed evidence of directed violence. Precision strikes. No witnesses survived who could provide detailed descriptions. I filed the reports. Pirate activity. Casualties estimated at 340 missing, presumed taken as slaves for labor markets. PDF response time delayed by technical failures. Investigations ongoing. The reports went into the administrative archives, where they would be filed and forgotten. The second shipment arrived within a week. 100,000 tons. My world had food again. The starvation ended. My people lived. I had saved them. I had betrayed them. Both were true simultaneously. The agricultural teams worked on blight countermeasures. It took 18 months, but they developed a resistant grain variant. The next planting season showed promising results. The harvest projections climbed. Within 2 years, production had recovered to 70% of historical norms. The crisis was ending. The administratum finally responded to my tithe deferment application. Processing time, 30 to 1 months. Result, deferment denied. Reasoning, insufficient documentation of crisis severity. I was informed that future tithe shortfalls would result in punitive measures. My compliance record now showed 1 note of concern. 3 additional notes would trigger my removal and possible prosecution. I had saved 469 million people. The administrator noted my failure to maintain tithe requirements. The Archon contacted me again 6 months after the raid. Governor Malthius, I trust your agricultural situation has improved. It has. Our arrangement is concluded. Not concluded. Modified. I have another proposal. I have nothing more to offer you. You have exactly what I require. Another small raid. 5 locations this time. 500 individuals total. In exchange, I provide you with something valuable. Warning of an orc incursion that will reach your system in 4 months. What orc incursion? The one your intelligence services have not detected. A small warg moving through this sector. Your world is directly in its path. If you prepare now, you can repel it with minimal losses. If you wait until it arrives, you will lose significant population and infrastructure. I offer you time to prepare. You offer me 500 individuals. The exchange is equitable. I will not. You will. You already demonstrated your willingness to make such arrangements. The precedent is established. I have records of our previous communication. I have documentation of the grain shipments. I have evidence of your coordination in delaying PDF response. If this evidence reaches the Inquisition, you will be executed for heresy. Your family will be investigated. Your legacy will be obliterated. Or you can allow another small raid, prepare for the coming orc threat, and preserve everything you have built. The box went silent. He had not disconnected. He was waiting for my response. He was right. I had already crossed the threshold. The first deal had created leverage. He owned my cooperation. Refusing meant destroying myself and accomplishing nothing. He could conduct the raid regardless. Accepting meant I could at least prepare for the orc threat and protect my world from that danger. 500, I said, no more. 500, agreed. The locations and timing will be provided. Prepare your PDF for the orcs. They will arrive in 117 days. The orcs arrived in 119 days. A small warg, fewer than 30,000 greenskins. My PDF was prepared. We had fortified key infrastructure. We had positioned forces at likely landing zones. We had prepared evacuation routes for civilian population centers. The orcs landed directly where the Archon had predicted. The battle lasted 8 days. We lost 4,000 PDF troopers and 11,000 civilians. The orcs were exterminated completely. If I had not received advance warning, the casualties would have been 10 times higher. I saved hundreds of thousands of lives by having time to prepare. The raid that preceded the orc arrival took 500 people from remote settlements. The pattern was identical to the first raid. Precise, surgical, no survivors to witness details. My reports listed pirate activity. The administratum filed them without comment. I justified it as acceptable cost. 500 lost to save hundreds of thousands. The mathematics favored acceptance. But I recognized what was happening. The Archon was establishing a pattern. He was demonstrating that our arrangement provided mutual benefit. He was conditioning me to accept that these deals were necessary, practical, logical. The third contact came 7 months later. This time he offered commercial intelligence, advance warning of administrative changes to tithe assessments that would affect my world. In exchange, 700 individuals and permission to establish a small supply cache in an abandoned mining complex on my world's moon. The cache would contain equipment for rapid raid deployment. It would allow faster operations with reduced detection. I accepted. The fourth contact came 9 months after that. The fifth came 6 months later. By the third year of our arrangement, I had made 8 deals. The Archon's demands escalated incrementally. More people, longer raids, greater coordination. He requested I provide him with population distribution maps. Publicly available data, he noted, nothing classified. He requested I schedule PDF training exercises to coincide with optimal raid timing. He requested I ensure communication systems experienced routine maintenance failures during specific windows. Each request seemed reasonable in isolation. Each request was one more step into complicity. I met a man named Castor during this period. He was the new Arbeits district commander, assigned to Varsavia Secundus to investigate the increasing reports of pirate activity. He was 37 years old, augmented with standard Arbeits combat modifications, scarred from 17 years of service. He carried a data slate everywhere, constantly reviewing files, searching for patterns. He requested a meeting with me in Year 4. We met in my office. He sat across from my desk, his augmented eyes registering details with mechanical precision. Governor Malthius, I have reviewed your world's incident reports for the past 4 years. The pattern is anomalous. Anomalous how? Targets are exclusively low-value settlements in remote regions. Response times are consistently delayed by technical failures. No witnesses survive to provide detailed descriptions. Casualty counts are exact, not estimates, but exact numbers. This suggests advanced intelligence and coordination. What do you conclude? I conclude that these are not opportunistic pirate raids. They are planned operations conducted by an organized force with detailed knowledge of your world's geography and defense patterns. Dark Eldar, I said. It was not a guess. It was acknowledgement of what we both knew. Yes, Dark Eldar, the precision matches their methodology. The question is how they obtain their intelligence. Long-range scanning. Captured individuals from previous raids providing information. Possible. But the coordination suggests something more direct. He watched me carefully. Governor, I must ask. Has anyone approached you offering deals or arrangements? The question was direct. He was giving me opportunity to confess. If I confessed, I would be executed. My family would be investigated. Varsavia Secundus would receive a new governor who might not protect the population as well as I had. The orcs had been repelled because I received warning. The blight crisis had been survived because I made a choice. My world was stable, productive, meeting its tithe obligations. I had saved millions of lives through my decisions. No, I said, no one has approached me. Castor studied me for 11 seconds. His augmented eyes processed micro-expressions, stress indicators, physiological responses. I kept my breathing steady. I maintained eye contact. I had practiced this. I had known this moment would come. Understood, he said finally. I will continue investigating. If you receive any unusual communications, report them immediately. I sat in my office for 2 hours, processing what had occurred. He suspected. He had no proof. But he suspected if he continued investigating, he might find evidence. The Archon had claimed he was careful, but careful was not perfect. Traces existed. I contacted the Archon that night. We have a problem, I said. The Arbeits are investigating. Arbeits Commander Castor. Yes, I am aware. He suspects coordination. He will find nothing conclusive. However, his investigation creates inconvenience. I propose a solution. Provide me with his schedule and routine patrol routes. I will ensure the problem resolves itself. You want to kill an Arbeit's commander. That will bring far more attention. Not kill, discourage. A non-fatal encounter that demonstrates the danger of his investigation. He will request transfer or reduce his inquiry. Either outcome benefits us. No, I will not provide information that leads to an attack on an Arbeit's officer. Governor, you have already provided information that led to raids taking 3,200 individuals from your world. Refusing this request while accepting previous requests is inconsistent. The principle is established. The magnitude is irrelevant. I had rationalized each previous deal as separate, as unique circumstance, as exceptional case. But they were not separate. They were cumulative. I had already become a collaborator. Refusing this specific request did not restore my integrity. It merely created arbitrary boundaries within my corruption. I need time to consider this. You have 24 hours. After that, I will assume your refusal and proceed with alternative methods. Those methods will be less precise and may result in Castor obtaining evidence of our arrangement. That evidence will destroy you. Choose carefully. I thought about Castor. He was a good man. He was doing his duty. He was protecting the Imperium from threats like me. He did not deserve what would happen if I complied. I thought about my world. 470 million people. Stable. Fed. Protected. If I was exposed and executed, what would happen to them? Would the next governor be as competent? Would they understand the complexities? Would they make the necessary choices? I provided Castor's schedule. The attack occurred during his patrol 3 days later. His transport was ambushed in a remote sector. His security detail was killed. He survived but was severely injured. 3 broken ribs, ruptured spleen, fractured skull. The injuries were precise, calculated to disable without killing. He recovered after 6 weeks in Medicaid care. He requested transfer immediately after recovery. His request was granted. He departed Varsavia Secundus 30 times 1 days after the attack. The investigation into the raid patterns was closed as inconclusive. His replacement was a younger Arbeits officer who focused on urban crime and showed no interest in pirate activity patterns. I had sacrificed Castor to preserve my position. I had arranged an attack on an Imperial official to protect my arrangement with Xeno's slavers. The line between collaboration and active service to the enemy had dissolved. I could no longer identify it. The deals continued. Year 7 brought the most significant escalation. The Archon requested permission to establish a permanent webway portal access point in an unused sector of my world's largest starport. The portal would be concealed, disguised as standard maintenance infrastructure. It would allow the Dark Eldar to conduct raids with unprecedented speed and efficiency, not just on my world, but using my world as a staging ground for operations throughout the subsector. This represents a fundamental change in our arrangement, I said during our discussion. You are asking me to transform my world into a Dark Eldar base of operations. I am asking you to allow me to use underutilized infrastructure for purposes that do not affect your population negatively. The portal is small. Its presence will not be detected. Your world benefits from increased stability. I have significant investment in ensuring Varsavia Secundus remains prosperous and secure. Protecting my asset means protecting your population, and the raids launched from this portal will target other worlds, not yours. Your people have provided sufficient contributions. Future extractions from Varsavia Secundus will be minimal. Maintenance quotas only. 50 individuals per year. In exchange, you receive my continued protection. I monitor threats to your system. I provide intelligence on orc movements, pirate activity, heretic uprisings. I ensure your world remains stable and profitable. Consider it an insurance arrangement. 50 individuals per year. That was the cost. 50 people who would disappear into the Dark Eldar's torture chambers so that 470 million could live in relative security. If I refuse, I activate the evidence I have accumulated. 7 years of communication records, payment receipts, coordination logs. Your involvement in Arbeit's Commander Caster's attack, all of it delivered to the Inquisition. You are executed. Your family is executed. Your world receives a new governor who knows nothing of local conditions and may govern poorly. Many die through incompetence, what could have lived through your competent management. And I conduct my operations anyway, but with less restraint, since I no longer have invested interest in your world's stability. The choice was illusory. I had chosen 7 years ago. Everything since was consequence of that first decision. Agreed, I said. The portal was installed over the course of 3 months. The Dark Eldar worked at night in restricted sections of the starport. My security personnel were given false explanations. Classified administrative project, no details available. The portal itself was beautiful in a way that made my eyes hurt to observe. Curved architecture that suggested angles impossible in normal space. Materials that reflected light incorrectly. It was concealed behind false walls and powered by systems I did not understand. It became operational in month 4. The raids intensified across the subsector. 7 worlds reported increased Dark Eldar activity. Casualty counts climbed. The Administratum issued warnings about elevated pirate activity. Additional PDF resources were allocated to patrol routes. None of it mattered. The raids continued with perfect precision, the Dark Eldar appearing and vanishing through their webway network before response forces could engage. My world was the hub, the base, the staging ground. I was the collaborator who made it possible. I received commendation from the Administratum in year 9. My world had maintained perfect tithe compliance for 6 consecutive years. My governance was noted as efficient and stable. I was offered opportunity to govern a larger, more significant world. A promotion. I declined, citing personal connection to Varsavia Secundus and desire to continue my work there. The truth was, I could not leave. The Archon would not permit it. I was valuable. I was controlled. I was trapped in the machinery of my own creation. I met a young administrator named Marcus in year 11. He was 26 years old, newly assigned to my staff, enthusiastic about service to the Imperium. He approached governance with idealism I no longer remembered possessing. He believed the system worked. He believed that proper administration and faithful service led to just outcomes. He believed the Emperor protected those who maintained faith. I envied him. I hated him for his naivety. I wanted to protect him from learning what I had learned. He noticed irregularities in starport logistics reports during his 3rd month. Equipment requisitions that did not match deployment, maintenance schedules that blocked access to specific sections without clear justification. He brought his concerns to me directly. Governor, I believe there may be corruption in the starport administration. These patterns suggest unauthorized use of Imperial facilities. What do you recommend? I asked. Full audit, inspection of restricted areas, interview key personnel under Arbeit's supervision. If he conducted his audit, he would find the portal. If he found the portal, the entire structure would collapse. The Inquisition would be called. Varsavia Secundus would be investigated thoroughly. The evidence of my collaboration would be discovered. I would be executed. My entire administration would be purged. Marcus himself would be interrogated and possibly executed simply for working under my authority. Your diligence is commendable, I said. However, the sections you reference contain classified administrative projects. Access is restricted by order of subsector command. The irregularities you observe are intentional security measures. I was not informed of classified projects in the starport. That is the nature of classification. I will provide you with documentation confirming the project's legitimacy. Do not investigate further. Unauthorized inquiry into classified operations is a serious offense. I saw doubt in his expression. He believed in proper procedure. He believed that legitimate classified projects would be properly documented and that authorities would be truthful about security measures. He was correct to believe that. In a functional system, his beliefs would be validated. Yes, Governor. he said. But the doubt remained. I provided falsified documentation confirming classified administrative projects. The documents were perfect. The Archon's resources included forgery capabilities that exceeded Imperial security measures. Marcus accepted them. He stopped investigating. But he watched me differently after that. I saw it in how he observed during staff meetings. He was processing. He was questioning. He was beginning to recognize that something was wrong. 3 months later, Marcus approached me privately. We were alone in my office. Late evening, most staff had departed. "Governor, I need to ask you something directly. Is someone forcing you to provide access to our facilities?" The question surprised me. He had reached a conclusion, but not the full truth. He had decided I was a victim, not a collaborator. "What makes you ask that?" "The patterns, the false documentation, your behavior. You are a good governor. You care about this world, but you are concealing something that troubles you deeply. I see it. If you are being blackmailed or threatened, we can address it. The Inquisition has protocols for extracting officials from compromised situations." He was offering me escape. He was offering to help me confess and possibly receive leniency for cooperation. He believed I could be saved. "Marcus, there is nothing wrong. You are imagining problems that do not exist." "Governor, this discussion is concluded. Return to your duties." He left. I sat in my office and recognized that he was becoming a threat, not intentionally, not maliciously, but his idealism and competence made him dangerous. He would continue investigating. He would eventually discover enough truth to warrant official inquiry. He would destroy everything I had built to protect a principle. I contacted the Archon. "I have another problem. A staff member who suspects irregularities. Does he have evidence?" "Not yet, but he is intelligent and persistent. He will find evidence if he continues." The solution is obvious. Add him to the quota. Anonymous extractions from the general population. Marcus could simply disappear. Missing person report. Investigation that led nowhere. Another statistic. He is a skilled administrator. His disappearance would create complications. Then provide him with a transfer opportunity. Promote him away from your direct supervision. Send him somewhere his talents are used and his investigations are redirected. It was reasonable. It would protect Marcus. It would protect my operations. It was the compassionate choice within the constraints of my situation. I arranged Marcus's transfer. He was promoted to a position in the Subsector Administratum headquarters. Better pay, greater authority, recognition of his skills. He accepted the transfer enthusiastically. He thought I was rewarding his competence. He thought I was a mentor supporting his career advancement. He departed Varsavia Secundus 47 days later. I received one communication from him after his transfer, a brief message thanking me for the opportunity and expressing hope that he could serve the Imperium as well as I had served Varsavia Secundus. I never responded. Year 15 brought the full realization of what I had become. The subsector governor called an emergency conclave of all planetary governors in the region. 17 governors assembled on the sector capital world. The purpose: address the escalating Dark Eldar raid activity. Casualties across the subsector had exceeded 40,000 in the past year. 7 worlds had experienced significant raids. The Adeptus Arbites had compiled evidence suggesting coordinated operations rather than opportunistic piracy. The subsector governor addressed us directly. He was a severe man in his 60s, augmented with life extension treatments, who had governed for 43 years. The Xenos are operating with unprecedented intelligence. They strike with perfect timing. They avoid our patrols. They target population centers with minimal defense. This suggests they have access to our operational planning, our deployment schedules, our intelligence assessments. There is a leak. There is collaboration. Someone in this room may be compromised. I maintained neutral expression. Around me, other governors registered shock, outrage, denial, standard responses. I observed them and recognized that I was different. I did not feel outrage because I was the leak. I was the collaborator. Inquisitor Kravik will be conducting investigations. The subsector governor continued. All governors will submit to interrogation and audit. Your communications will be reviewed. Your financial records will be examined. Your staff will be interviewed. If you are innocent, you have nothing to fear. If you are compromised, confession now may result in leniency. Inquisitor Kravik stood from his position at the side of the chamber. He was tall, augmented with extensive bionics, his face expressionless. He carried the authority of the Inquisition, absolute, unquestionable, final. The Emperor's mercy extends to those who cooperate, Kravik said. His voice was synthesized, filtered through a vox grill that removed all emotional inflection. Heresy that is confessed is heresy that can be purged. Heresy that is concealed metastasizes. Choose confession. Choose redemption. I should have confessed. That moment was my opportunity. I could have stepped forward, detailed my involvement, accepted execution, ended the cycle. 40,000 people had died because of the operations I facilitated. My death would be appropriate recompense. I remained silent. The investigations began immediately. Kravik's staff interviewed my personnel. They reviewed my financial records, my communication logs, my administrative decisions. They found nothing. The Archon's operational security was perfect. The communications left no trace. The payments arrived through legitimate commercial channels. The falsified documentation passed all verification protocols. After 3 months, Kravik cleared me of suspicion. I was logged as fully compliant and loyal. The investigation continued, focusing on other governors who showed more obvious irregularities. The Archon contacted me the day after I received clearance. Congratulations, Governor. You have passed the Inquisition's scrutiny. This validates my methods. This confirms our arrangement can continue indefinitely. Yes, you are in your 15th year of service. Standard governor tenure is 30 to 35 years before retirement. You have decades remaining. We will continue our profitable partnership. Varsavia Secundus will remain stable. Your population will be protected. 50 individuals per year will contribute to the larger structure. Everyone benefits, except the 50. Do you know their names, Governor? In 15 years, you have facilitated the extraction of approximately 4,700 individuals. Do you know any of their names? I did not. They were numbers in reports, statistics, acceptable losses. You have learned to process suffering as background data, the Archon said. This is wisdom. This is maturity. You have become an effective administrator precisely because you recognize that governance requires choices between terrible options. You chose to save millions by sacrificing thousands. The Imperium makes identical calculations constantly. Your tithe system is built on it. I simply made the calculation explicit. He was correct. The Imperium's entire structure was built on acceptable losses. The tithe took resources that could sustain local populations and redistributed them to support the war machine. Worlds starved so Forge Worlds could produce weapons. Populations died so the Imperium could field armies. My arrangement with the Archon was not fundamentally different from the Administratum's standard operations. It was simply more visible to me because I had to authorize it directly. I want this to end, I said. It will end when you die or retire. Until then it continues. You no longer have the option to choose otherwise. The evidence I possess has accumulated for 15 years. Your involvement is comprehensive and undeniable. Confession now results in your execution, your family's execution, and Varsavia Secundus receiving a governor who knows nothing of the delicate balance required to maintain stability while meeting my requirements. More will suffer under incompetent governance than suffer under our arrangement. You know this. This is why you will not confess. I disconnected the Vox. I sat in my office for 8 hours. I did not eat. I did not sleep. I processed what I had become. I was a collaborator. I was a traitor. I was also the governor who maintained perfect tithe compliance, who protected my population from orc invasions, who ensured stability and prosperity for 470 million people. Both were true. The categories were not separable. I thought about the boy I had been, the man who had accepted the governorship with pride and determination, the man who believed service meant honor. That man was dead. I had killed him through incremental compromise. Each small choice had seemed rational in isolation. Accumulated, they had transformed me into something unrecognizable. I thought about confessing. I imagined walking to the nearest Arbeit station and detailing everything. The Archon was correct. Confession meant execution. My family would be investigated. Marcus, who I had transferred away, would be interrogated for possible involvement. Octavius and my entire staff would be purged. Varsavia Secundus would be classified as compromised and possibly subject to exterminatus if the Inquisition determined the contamination was too deep. Millions would die to punish my crimes. The punishment would exceed the crime. The Imperium's response to heresy was never proportional. It was absolute. I chose to continue, not because I believed it was right, because ending it would accomplish nothing except satisfying my need for moral redemption. The suffering would continue. It would simply be distributed differently. I governed for 7 more years. The arrangement continued exactly as the Archon had described. 50 people per year. 4,700 became 5,050. The raids across the subsector intensified. Casualty counts climbed. Inquisitor Kravik eventually identified a minor official on a different world who had accepted Dark Eldar bribes. The official was executed publicly. The raids continued because he was not the primary facilitator. I was. I stopped sleeping properly in year 19. The catalepsian node I did not possess would have been useful. Instead, I lay awake processing memories, faces I had seen in reports, settlement names where raids had occurred, the exact count of individuals taken. 4,700, 5,050. I counted them like I had counted temperatures and timestamps and casualties in another life. I received notification of my retirement eligibility in year 2002. Standard protocol. Governors could retire after 25 years of service with full pension and honors. 3 years remained. 3 more years of governance. 3 more years of 150 individuals extracted from my population. 3 more years of facilitating raids across the subsector. I met with Octavius during this period. He was 79 years old, preparing for his own retirement. He had served under 4 governors, including me. We sat in my office, reviewing transition plans for the next administration. "You have been an excellent governor," he said. "Stable, competent, the best I have served under." "Thank you, Octavius. There is something I must tell you before I retire." He paused, choosing words carefully. "I know." "Know what?" "About the arrangement. About the Archon. About the portal in the starport." The admission struck me like physical impact. I processed his statement. He knew. He had known. "For how long? How long have you known?" "Since year 4. I recognized the patterns. I investigated quietly. I found enough evidence to understand what was occurring. I chose not to report it. Why? Because you saved this world. The Blight crisis would have killed millions. The Orc invasion would have devastated us. Your decisions, however morally compromised, resulted in our survival and prosperity. I am an administrator. I understand practical mathematics. I understand acceptable losses. I chose to enable your choices because the alternatives were worse. You could have reported me. To what end? You would be executed. I would be executed for knowing and not reporting. Varsavia Secundus would suffer under new governance. The Archon would continue operating, simply with different arrangements. Nothing would improve. Everything would worsen. He was describing my own reasoning, reflected back at me. We were both complicit. We were both trapped in the same logic. "Do you believe we were right?" I asked. "I believe we did what was necessary. Whether that constitutes rightness is a question for theologians. I am an administrator. I administered. He retired 3 months later. I attended his farewell ceremony. He received commendations for 47 years of loyal service to the Imperium. He was praised for his dedication, his competence, his faithfulness. No one mentioned that he had enabled heresy for 18 years because the practical mathematics favored it. I reached my retirement eligibility in year 2005. The administratum offered me full retirement with honors. I could leave. I could transfer my authority. I could escape. The Archon contacted me the day I received the retirement offer. You are considering retirement. I advise against it. My service period is complete. I am entitled to retire. You are entitled to many things. Retirement, honors, pension, a peaceful death of old age. I can ensure you receive none of them. The evidence still exists. It will always exist. If you retire, your successor will not understand our arrangement. They will not cooperate efficiently. I will be forced to apply pressure. That pressure may take forms you find intolerable. What do you want? Remain in position. Request extension of service. Governors can extend indefinitely with administrative approval. You have an exemplary record. Approval is certain. Continue our arrangement. Continue protecting your world. Continue serving as you have served. For how long? Until you die, or until you are no longer useful. Whichever comes first. I should have refused. I should have retired and dared him to activate his evidence. I should have forced the confrontation and accepted consequences. I requested extension of service. The administratum approved it enthusiastically. I was cited as an example of dedication. A governor so committed to his world that he chose to continue serving beyond his required term. I governed for 8 more years, 33 years total, 33 years of collaboration, 33 years of facilitating dark Eldar operations. The count of individuals extracted from Varsavia Secundus reached 6,450. The count from raids launched through my starport portal exceeded 170,000 across the subsector. I am 62 years old now. I am writing this testimony in my private office where no surveillance systems monitor. I am writing it because testimony is all that remains. The Archon contacted me 2 days ago. He informed me that my usefulness has declined. The Inquisition is conducting another investigation into subsector raid patterns. New investigators with better analytical tools. They will eventually trace the operations to Varsavia Secundus. The Archon is closing the portal and relocating his staging operations. He no longer requires my cooperation. He offered me a choice. Accept extraction to Camorage as a guest, where I will live out my remaining years in comfort, but under dark Eldar supervision. Or remain on Varsavia Secundus and face inevitable discovery when the Inquisition traces the operations. I declined extraction. I will remain on Varsavia Secundus. The Inquisition will discover the portal within weeks. They will trace my involvement. I will be arrested, interrogated, executed. My family will be investigated. My staff will be purged. Varsavia Secundus may be classified as compromised. I am writing this testimony so there is a record, not to justify myself. There is no justification, not to explain. Explanation is not exculpation. I write to document the process, to describe how a man becomes a traitor through incremental compromise, to demonstrate that the first choice determines all subsequent choices. I accepted the Archon's first deal to save my people from starvation. That choice was rational. The mathematics favored it. 120 million lives preserved in exchange for 340 lives lost. But that choice established precedent. It created leverage. It demonstrated my willingness to make such calculations. Every subsequent choice followed inevitably from the first. The leverage accumulated. The complicity deepened. The line between victim and collaborator dissolved. I became what I had dealt with. The Imperium's servant became the Xeno's tool. I governed competently. Varsavia Secundus thrived under my administration. Perfect tithe compliance. Stable population. Prosperous economy. Low crime rates. My people lived better lives because of my governance. They also became cattle, farmed by dark Eldar raiders who used my world as hunting ground and staging base. Both are true. I saved millions. I condemned thousands. I was an exemplary governor. I was a heretic traitor. The categories coexist. The Imperium teaches that heresy is absolute evil that corrupts through contact. But heresy did not announce itself as evil. It announced itself as practical necessity, as rational choice. As the lesser evil in a situation with no good options, the Archon never asked me to worship dark gods or reject the Emperor. He asked me to make a deal. One deal. The rest followed. This is how the Imperium's servants fall. Not through dramatic rejection of faith, through incremental compromise in service of practical mathematics, through recognition that the Imperium's own logic, acceptable losses, calculated sacrifices, the few dying so the many can live, applies equally to choices the Imperium condemns. I do not ask for forgiveness. There is no forgiveness for what I have done. I do not claim I was right. I was not right. I was practical. Practicality in service of evil is still evil. I document this so whoever reads it understands. The first choice matters. The first compromise determines everything that follows. If you make one deal with forces that should never be negotiated with, you will make another, and another, until you have spent 33 years as a traitor while believing you are serving your people. The Imperium is a machine that consumes. The Dark Eldar are a machine that consumes. I served both. I was fuel for both. I fed others to both. The difference between them was smaller than I had believed when I was young and faithful. I am Governor Malthius of Varsavia Secundus. I governed for 33 years. I maintained perfect tithe compliance. I protected 470 million people. I facilitated the enslavement and torture of 176,450 individuals. I made one deal because my people were starving and the Imperium would not help them. Everything else followed. The Inquisition will arrive in 6 to 11 days. I will not flee. I will not resist. I will face interrogation and execution. This testimony will remain hidden in archives where perhaps someone will find it centuries from now and understand how servants become traitors through choices that seem rational at the time. I was 14 when I learned that governance meant choosing between terrible options. I was 41 when I learned that some choices transform you into what you govern against. I am 62 when I write this final record. My name was Malthius. I was a planetary governor. I made one deal with Xenos slavers. I never stopped making it. The mathematics favored acceptance. The mathematics were damnation. I counted the cost. I will pay it now.